Bayonetta 3's secret chapter will be continued with Bayonetta Origins Cereza and the Lost Demon. Releasing on the 17th of March 2023 in the form of a separate game, I'm going to be breaking down everything from the new characters, how the plot of this game will go, why Rosa is imprisoned, and who is this being that is going to be quote-unquote helping Cereza, who we also found in the end credits of Bayonetta 3. And we've even figured out who the likely candidate for the demon really is. You even have Doug Bowser or Platinum Games hinting Cereza's next stories.
We hope you'll keep your eyes peeled for Cereza's next stories.
Which can be referring to Bayonetta Origins, but having an optimistic mindset, I would love for it to be a hint to continuing off the main Bayonetta storylines after they've hopefully returned, or maybe some other variants that are out there. It starts off with a melancholic music box version of Whispers of Destiny, literally just backtracking from the ending of Bayonetta 3, literally flipping the pages back to the very beginning. And I know, maybe I'm thinking way too ahead about this, but it does mix up the events that happened in Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 1 on these pages. Again, it's probably just some marketing edits, but really, we know that there are a lot of hints that tell us that these Bayonettas that we see here are separate beings, just like what was shown at the very end of Bayonetta 3. But realistically, maybe it's just an edit to recap what happened in the previous games, but there is one scene right here which is missing from my memory palace. I don't remember seeing this shot in any of the cinematics from Bayonetta 1. It's likely in that game, and I just missed it, but if this exact screenshot is familiar to you, let me know in the comments below. Moving on, it goes on to give us a sort of Alice in Wonderland-esque title scene with the words Bayonetta Origins, kinda lighting up that memory of mine with Pokemon Origins. And you can even say that both series are separate timelines from the mainland series. I'm going to establish it right now that this video is based off the theory that this Cereza in Bayonetta Origins is another timeline, so we'll call her Origin Cereza. If you ever hear me say Origin Cereza or Origin Bayonetta, it's referring to the one in the secret book who will eventually grow up into this outfit. Just a little quick deduction, since Brave Cereza didn't recognize what kind of beast Strider is when they first met, that is a sort of deal breaker in whether or not these two are the same person. And you also have that secret outfit which kind of gives away that it is a separate character, but shoutouts to those who saw this as a different timeline. So they are essentially confirming that this is that fairy timeline that we saw in Bayonetta 3, where Lucaon is potentially from. A few of you have already sent me this a month ago where this is a different Cereza, not the brave one or the young version of the brave one. Shoutouts to you, Crazy Gal and Krelian. But this game has a different variation of the Bayonetta font. It's like squished horizontally with the same golden shapes that you see with these Twilight beasts, like with Strider and Viola. Obviously, we were right from the hints of the cliffhangers at the end. This will dive into the origins, or at least the locations of the fairies. So just to clarify, technically, the secret book is likely the events of the fairy timeline where Lucaon is from, or another timeline out there. But the page flips to see some new sceneries from what we've already explored, and oh my gosh, it looks like a new character. But you do see that subtle Umbran watch that she has. And remember, we're dealing with the multiverse. It seems like Umbran witches in this timeline probably had to deal with fairies and Twilight beasts, potentially also even the Lumen Sages as well. This Umbran Elder would look vastly different to the Umbran Elder that we are also used to, just like with most Bayonetta variants. You also have her Umbran watch, which has an Umbran logo, but it is quite similar to the new styled one towards the very end. It could just be a little design change because of the style of the game, but I digress. This made me theorize that Umbran witches and fairies in this timeline had a few mutual exchangings in technology and in magic. Another reason why I believe Umbran witches and Lumen Sages of this timeline are in a sort of little civil war is that this elder, or whoever this is, warns Cereza.
Cereza, you must never enter that forest. You would soon become a snack for one of the fairies who live there.
Kind of giving that parallel with Alice and her much older sister from Alice in Wonderland. It's quite cool how this timeline will explore and provide us with a new type of enemy. We've had angels, demons, homunculi, and now fairies, or Twilight beasts, having given us a little taste with Strider from Bayonetta 3. I like to think that fairies or Twilight beasts, at least the serious ones, are going to be much stronger than any of the enemies that we've faced, at least wishful thinking wise. There was the existence of fairies in the Garnet Roses all the way back in Bayonetta 1, so I am so happy they are finally putting some lore behind it, or at least in the name fairy. Since after the events of Bayonetta 3, I think the multiverse is still off limits, but there might be some rips in that multiverse or in the whole multiverse that require attention. I don't think these two timelines will converge just yet. Please give a little arc to Viola to find herself in becoming a proper Umbran witch before any kind of big crossover event with other variants. But after her next arc, arc, which is probably going to be in the year 3000. She will be the one to take care of these Twilight Beasts if they do go rogue, potentially even pairing up with Origin Bayonetta way down the line. Because, oh my god, I'm speculating that this fairy timeline, or whichever timeline this is, has some sort of force field that wasn't penetrated by Sigurd in the future. A sort of magic that is special to them. But yeah, just a speculation. Keep a pin in that. I'm going to come back to this very soon. And at this point, it's giving huge demo vibes. Shout outs to you all who remember that rhythm game. But as the music builds up, she encounters a little bit more advanced Twilight Beasts with similar constellations on their faces, as they also wield weapons. This is what I think was the perfect opportunity to showcase that Cheshire is able to transform and defend this Cereza. Maybe this is Origin Cereza's first use of Demon Slave, but it looks like more of a transformation though. This is where they finally reveal that different look Cheshire had, similar to the one in the cliffhanger where we slowed down the book, or in the ending group picture once you finished the secret chapter. But it looks like she may have activated it out of endangerment, just like how some Sharingans are first opened. But these small beasts do summon a dimensional terrain similar to Strider's move, where it basically becomes his territory, where he can manipulate the space and even himself around it. This is another clue to say that if these small beasts can activate even a fraction of that, imagine what the highest ranking fairies can do, which I believe you find them the deeper you go in the forest, hopefully finding a fairy village or fairy city, who knows. Honestly, this is why I think Sigurd wasn't able to conquer this timeline, or at least evidently. There has to be some sort of special magic that either the fairies or maybe even a mutual agreement between the three clans to protect this timeline. The Lumen and Umbran users in most timelines did come together to make their version of Thule. What's to say that the fairy timeline, or in this timeline, did something along the lines of that, but instead of branching out to other timelines, they protected their own. Smart. I like to personally think that this is what Aesir was trying to do with the Eyes of the World, but ultimately failed in his timeline. But you do see Cheshire transform into a much leaner quadruped, at least a much more leaner one than Viola's one. It'd be so cool that in the future, after learning to become a proper Umbran witch, Viola teams up with Bayonetta fighting the fairies. I theorize Origin Bayonetta will get her own Twilight form, since this Cereza might have some sort of arc where she attains that sort of power due to how intrigued and exposed she is to this forest. But we do see a continuation of that scene where she visits Rosa that was teased at the end of the first one, a better close-up of the prison, and I initially thought it was just this mysterious, you know, that locked character aesthetic where she is just a shadow and they don't want to reveal anything too early. But what if in this timeline she was not only imprisoned for being with a Lumen Sage, but maybe she is infected with a magic from the forest in this timeline that the Umbran witches are trying to contain. But it then throws us off, where in order to save Rosa, she is deep within the forest. What if there are some trailer tricks going on? Because if Rosa's in the forest, as the game says, for Origin Cereza to rescue, why would she be here in prison? What if this is a spiritual or magical projection by Rosa in order to communicate with Origin Cereza, a place she'd know where to go whenever she felt sad? Or what if this is the antagonist that is trying to lure Origin Cereza to go to the forest in the first place using Rosa as a facade, which explains the dark purple aura that is similar to the enemies at the end of the cliffhanger. Now, here is where the dopamine hits. We finally see that mysterious character from the end credits in a much clearer view. But it initially says she meets an infernal demon, their fates entwined. From all the strings I can pull, that fates entwined part really hints that this is Lucan, or at least a version of Luca, because that's what they've been motifing in Bayonetta 3, where you even have the same color scheme of Luca's first scarf. But this being barely tells Cereza to follow the white wolf in the Avalon Forest, of course having that white rabbit similarity to Alice in Wonderland. But the last time we saw a white canine was in Bayonetta 2 with young Baldur. This can also be an Okami reference, or realistically just a magical wolf that is loyal to the forest. But this trailer really wants us to know this is before Origin Cereza got the name Bayonetta. I theorize at the end of this game it will be Rosa who gives her the name Bayonetta when she eventually finishes her adventures, since it was revealed to be a family name. But there's also this line where she enunciates the same way as little Cereza in Bayonetta 1. Which is adorable. Then we have an even clearer showcase of that screenshot where this being will bestow a certain power to Origin Cereza. Hopefully it being her version of Twilight magic that she'll unlock deeper within the forest, but this is really giving me Genshin vibes, especially this character in this cloak, and the art style. However, this being is speaking with a slightly deeper masculine tone.
I will give you the power to save your mother.
This is actually so cool when you think about it. This scene right here is likely after when Origin Cereza rants about how weak she is as she is sitting down in the same position, which leads to this being lending out his hand. Now, what makes this a little suspicious is the idea that he comes in a time of desperation for Origin Cereza, sort of like a serpent in a tree. or a demon? I'm going to put out into the universe that this is not Lugon. Just a small theory. Best to be a new character that we've never seen before, just to give a little depth and drama to this installment. He does have a sickly, raspy voice, and even trusting Cereza with a power himself. I theorize he is a child of the fairies that potentially has a newer generational moral compass than the elders. It's that similar niche archetype with certain characters, especially the offspring of a high-ranking family, where they are more open to outsiders of their clan. But since we've learned with Sigurd, you also cannot trust this person, at least in the eyes of us, the viewer. Maybe he is playing that boy who cried wolf role in this spin-off, but staying optimistic, I hope it's a new character where Cereza can learn and grow with. Moving on, it continues on with a title that gives off huge movie spin-off vibes, Cereza and the Lost Demon. The Lost Demon could literally be Cheshire, especially with the similar imagery that he has with the teeth, but I think that's pretty weak and too obvious. But looking back at the first chapter book, at that bayonet-looking beast, it's likely that this will be the demon that this game is referring to due to the similarities of its teeth, but I hope there is way more to the demon other than this, since it's already been revealed and it's quite easy. But I still have to remember that they seem like they are going with a lighter Disney fairy tale kind of vibe with this spin-off. So it could mean that this is the final, most adorable antagonist yet. They did coincidentally put these two scenes right here together. So if these are really linked and this being is an infernal demon, I guess that's what this title is referring to. This is going to be the first time where a demon or an infernal demon has the most human looking form, besides Radahn. It could be this being's true form that they are hiding. So what's to say that this person will double cross us at the end of this secret chapter and will end up being the antagonist, all grown up in later installments of Bayonetta? I would not mind that one bit. And Viola is the one who has to come in and save us? Holy shit, yeah. If Sigurd isn't enough for Radahn, and I know this is just me wishful thinking, then this being, when all grown up, should be the one to at least encounter Radahn. Two infernal demons that look the most human going all out. But you have the release date, March 17th next year, which is followed by a really eerie laughter. Likely being the kid that's been helping Origin Cereza all this time, essentially confirming themselves to be a villain towards the very end, or unmasking themselves to be the villain. It ends off with a credit screen where there is an awesome rendition of Cheshire Serious Mode behind Origin Cereza. It ends with a comedic and adorable skit of Origin Cereza feeding Cheshire lots and lots of magic fruits that we'll likely get from defeating these beasts. I theorize that this game will dive into the fairy timeline, showcasing the possibility of what if Cereza was introduced to fairies at a young age, finally versing this being who will double cross us. Click here for the next Bayonetta 3 breakdown video. I'm Rakan, and never get disheartened.